Hi, everyone. This is Debi Ronca, your host, and welcome to the Transition Bridge podcast, where we navigate and talk about the different seasons of change in our lives and discover the purpose and the growth that comes through life's transitions. Today, I am honored to have a guest whose entire life reflects the purposeful. Can I just start again? I'm going to just
Please.
start and we'll edit this out because I want to
Yes,
do
please.
this right. Okay. Hi, everyone. This is Debi Ronca, your host, and welcome to the Transition Bridge podcast, where we talk about navigating the seasons of change and discovering the purpose and the growth that comes through life's transitions. Well, today I am honored to have a guest whose entire life is a powerful example of transformation and grace. He is known as the People's Bishop. Bishop Kevin Foreman is a shepherd who deeply loves those that he leads. He was born in Denver and raised in Memphis, Tennessee, and he has risen from humble beginnings to become an influential pastor, a church planter, a bishop, a success coach, author, philanthropist, and entrepreneur. He's also the founder and chancellor of Harvest Bible College and the creator of Fit Harvest, which is a movement promoting healthy lifestyle. And Kevin personally has lost 95 pounds just changing the way he lives. Bishop Foreman's life and work reflect his commitment to helping others experience God's goodness, God's purpose, and transformative grace. Well, Bishop Kevin, thank you so much for being here with me today on the
Oh, it's my
Transition
pleasure.
Bridge podcast.
It is my pleasure. Thank you for having me. As I shared with you before we began, I salute you for what you do, how you're making an impact in the lives of people, and sometimes one simple conversation can create such a powerful catalyst for change in the lives of people. And so, you only eternity will tell the lives that you've impacted that you never heard from, you never got an email from, you never got a text from, you never saw them read or listen to something or watch something you've done, but your life was profoundly impacted and it changed everything. So big salute to you and thank you for what you do.
Well, thank you, Bishop Foreman. I'm really humbled by your words, and I love that I get to do this.
Yes.
I love that God just led me to this space, and I
Yes.
always pray that He uses it to touch lives. So thank you for affirming
Yes.
that. I appreciate
Absolutely.
that.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Well, hey, so, you've come from humble beginnings. You grew up in Memphis. It wasn't easy. So, can you paint a picture of what your early life was like and how those experiences really have shaped your faith and your calling?
Absolutely. The joke is I came out of my mom's room with a Bible and a briefcase. Because I had this spiritual affinity and this affinity for business. And those two things just were
Yeah.
in both of my hands. And I was that way. I was different. And I knew that I was different as a kid. Most kids want to be friends with one another. I was the kid that wanted to be friends with the teachers. I wanted to be friends with the principal.
Wow.
I was just different. I was the kid that was grading my classmates' papers while they were out at recess. I was in the classroom grading papers. I know it's crazy when
No.
you look back on it. I control the teacher's grade book. So, as a kid, sometimes I wanted to be a teacher at one point, and I am. It's amazing because everything I wanted to do as a child, as a teenager, I get to do it now and what I do just in a different capacity. And so sometimes the way that purpose is fulfilled is different than how sometimes we envision it. And but I was just different. I always was gravitated towards older folks and people who I saw as mature and people who I saw as leaders. And I didn't really recognize what that was as a kid, but it was the
Yeah.
leader in me that was connecting with the leader that I saw and helping to shape and form and fashion who I would later become. Growing up, in the inner city of Memphis and being reared, you see a lot of what happens sometimes in those areas. Immediately after slavery in America, the area community I grew up in, Orange Mound, was known as one of the many Black Wall Streets across America. It was thriving, it was bustling, entrepreneurship, very industrious, high economic impact. People were doing really well through the years, as often happens with those areas, through policy, misinvestment, et cetera, you see a decline in those areas. And so I saw drugs, I saw gangs, I saw
Right.
all of the things that
Mm.
aren't great to see. Being in a drive-by shooting, right? Where, for those unfamiliar with that, it's where someone's in a car, they let those windows down, and they have a target, and they don't necessarily care who's on that porch, who's in that front yard, that they have a
Yeah.
target. So I could
Sad.
remember those experiences as a kid. And I remember looking around and saying, that I'm beholding a lot, but these are not things that I want to become. And so as a result, I made the changes, and I made the internal decision that I was going to be something different, that I was going to do something different. And that's really what life began for me. So as I mentioned, in my teenage years, I was different. I also grew up in a home. While I have an amazing, loving mom, great grandmother, great great grandmother, they're all amazing. My stepfather was an abuser. He was abusive to my mother. He was a womanizer. He was most qualities you look at when you saw him, you'd say, these are things you don't want to be, you don't want to do. I learned to take the great, but also to get rid of that which wasn't great. Chew the meat, spit the bone, as they say. Because my
Hmm.
stepfather was very charismatic. He could sell ice to an Eskimo off of the Eskimo's, hut and or igloo.
Right,
He
right.
said, I got a great deal, honey, on this ice. You're like, didn't he just take it off of our igloo and he's selling it to us? He was just extremely gifted as an individual that was charismatic and had the ability to inspire, had the ability to really get people fired up about certain things. And so I was able to take some of that from him and lots of lessons about different things, but also saying, you know what, there's a lot here that I don't want to take. As a kid, that experience I learned later in life, it really parentified me. So, I took on a very parental and paternal type of mentality as a kid because I'm seeing, my brother and sister, I need to protect them. So I'm thinking like
Right.
a father, even though I'm a child. My mother never asked me to do that. There was something innate in me that said, I've got
Hmm.
to protect. I didn't do what a lot of kids did because I thought, I need to be home because if he has one of his episodes,
Right.
depending on whatever drug he was on, whatever combination or cocktail of drugs and
Hmm.
alcohol he was on, I need to be home to protect my mom. So I didn't do a lot of spending the night. I didn't do a lot of the things that teens would do because I felt this sense that I have to be the protector. And I would discover that that would be very helpful to me in doing what I do as a shepherd, because you have to love people if you're going to do what I do. Some people like crowds, but
Exactly.
they don't love people. And I love and like both. And so that was very necessary. Flip side of that, I had to transition, hence to the whole topic of what you talk about. I had to transition from realizing that that was a skill that was developed from a survival mentality that was helpful in some instances, but it could become a hindrance in other instances because your entire life you're making decisions like a father instead of, for example, a business owner when you need to make business owner decisions. So you are thinking like a father when you need to make changes. You're thinking like everybody is your responsibility to protect and to provide for. And so I had to learn how to let some of those burdens go, let some of those responsibilities that I took on for other people go. And you want to know what helped me to do that? You made reference to it. Losing that weight, I learned that there's these two things were tethered together. My weight was a physical manifestation of all of the internal things that I was carrying for other
Yes.
people.
Yes.
Yeah.
You, and isn't that interesting? We don't even, we're not even aware of that until I think the Lord drops that thought.
Mhm.
Maybe it's what's going on emotionally inside of you is now presenting itself in a physical way.
Absolutely, absolutely. And when it was so interesting, I began to lose the weight because I had decided I wanted to be healthier. Like I'm a lifelong student. I'm always striving to get better. I don't live life as an expert. I don't care how many educational accomplishments I have. I don't care how many business accomplishments I have, how many ministry. My role is a student. I'm always learning, always
Yes.
growing. What happened is I tried everything: slim, slow, slim, fast, protein power, eat all you want, don't eat anything, eat the meat, eat the carbs. I tried it all. None of it worked for me. And I said, I
Mhm.
want to be healthy. I said, I want to live a long, healthy, anointed, prosperous life. And I don't want my life to be where on Sunday after doing the second service, I got to come on. I'm just falling out and going to sleep, which is not just a factor of preaching and doing all those things. That's just bad diet. And I realized you couldn't outtrain a bad diet. So long story short, 21-day fast happens, or Daniel fast, as we call it. So just basically fruits and vegetables. And at the
Right.
end of that fast, I said, okay, God, you have to give me a strategy. It's a Sunday evening. I'm watching a documentary on Netflix. To this day, I can't find that documentary. It was just only on Netflix that particular day, just for me to see it.
That
That's what I
moment.
believe. And it changed everything. And I lost the first 75 pounds in about 3 months, then another 20 pounds a couple months after. And now my total weight loss is about 120, 130 pounds. It's so funny because people will look at me now and either they know that I'm Bishop Foreman, or two, they'll say, are you a coach? Are you a fitness coach? Are you a trainer? Because I always look like I'm going to the gym, coming from the gym, about to go work out or something like that. And it's amazing to see that my life has been a series of transitions, and in those transitions, I believe you can either turn it into a testimony,
Yes.
or you can turn it into something else. You can turn it into a victory, or you can stay in a valley. You can turn it into, why is this happening to me? Or you can turn it into, this is happening for me. And so I've always chosen the other. I've always chosen the pronoia aspect. Like, there's a vast conspiracy in the world of things working together for me. And I think that there's a scripture that goes with that. Romans 8:28. He makes all
All
things
things.
work together for our good. And so that's a high level view. There's tons of stuff I'm sure we're gonna get into, but that's a high level overview.
Oh, I love everything that you're saying. And, I was just thinking from the very beginning, when you were born with a Bible and a briefcase,
Yeah.
you've always had a spirit of learning. You had a
Yes.
spirit, a quest for knowledge.
Yes.
And that's when you know that you have a unique calling, when it's something you can't suppress. It's something you cannot ignore.
Right.
You just walked in it. You walked through the hard times. You learned through that. And so that's what a student of learning does. What can I glean from each moment? What can I put aside? What is for my good? What no longer serves me? And
Yes.
so you did that transition beautifully. And so I've got to ask you, because when your own people call you the people's bishop, that
Yes.
you truly are a shepherd, that tells me a lot about you.
Mm.
That when you think of a shepherd and how they tend their sheep and make sure they're fed and make sure they're well taken care of, that's a true shepherd. So, what is your heart towards your people?
Oh, such a good point. That's exactly it. And going back to that parentified, I think part of why my journey and the hand that I was dealt was the hand that I was dealt, is because it gave me those skills. Because from a kid, I was always thinking that way: protection, investment, pouring into, looking out for. And I think that's the difference between a shepherd and a charlatan. That's the difference between a shepherd and a hireling. That's the difference between a motivational speaker. And that's not bad. That's good. That's important. But that's the difference between the two, is that one is just speaking for the purposes of motivation, but one is motivating, inspiring, encouraging, correcting, building, giving wisdom, giving hope, navigating through paths. It's so much, and I'm grateful for everything that I've been through, because it prepared me to do that, and to do it well, and honestly to do it with an integrity that I know my motives, my agenda, what my heart's all about, what I want to see happen in the lives of people. And so for me, that's where that moniker came from. I genuinely love the people that I lead. It's like the United Nations of Church. It's black, white, tall, short, everybody included, nobody excluded. In our history, we've seen over 12,000 professions of faith. This year alone, over 1,600, which is great, but I really feel like we're just getting started. There's so many more people that need to be reached and impacted. And so, it really is, that's really my heart. Um,
Mm.
and I always strive to make it not just a heart matter, but a habit and in my hands, meaning that you can see what's in my heart because you can look at what I do.
Oh gosh, that is so powerful, because we could say a lot of things, but if our
Yes.
actions don't back up our words, then
Yes.
you're the type of leader no one will ever trust.
Right. Absolutely.
Right? So
Absolutely.
you are absolutely doing both. I bless you for that. And
Thank
so
you.
I hear you have this great way of presenting the gospel. You're bold, you're creative, you humor even at times. So is that something that just you developed, or is that part of who you are?
That's such a great question. Interestingly enough, when I was growing up as a kid, I was very shy in small settings and circles. So
Interesting.
I remember in second grade, and there in Memphis City Schools, Dunbar Elementary School for anybody there in the area, and because I was friends with the teachers, and I would always be with the teachers, they put me up for everything. So we had something. It was pioneering. It was very avant-garde at the time. It was called the homework hotline. Our parents could call in and get their kids' homework and get that update. So they put me in the Memphis City newspaper. I think Commercial Appeal, I think is what it's called. The newspaper to be the face of the homework hotline. Smuckers, the jams and jellies
Yeah.
and condiments. They made me their spokesperson. So
Oh,
Smuckers
how
came
about that?
in, and so you got all the executives who have come in, and you've got the whole entire school and a bunch of schools together in the gym. And so I'm the spokesman for Smuckers and all of that.
Cool.
Later on, I'd be your student council presidents and your captain of your safety patrol and all of those types of things. And that was just a natural thing for me to do. So when you put me on a stage, I become alive. But sometimes in smaller social settings, I could be very nervous and very shy. And so to answer your question, I think it's really a mixture of who I've always been, but then I would study. I would study others. I would study how they spoke, how they led, how they moved, how they acted. Again, which I think was this affinity that I had, always grabbing towards and emulating and taking the best off of leaders that I saw and really implementing it into myself. And it was a subconscious thing. I didn't necessarily say, I like the way he speaks. I'm going to speak like that. I would watch it, I'd be enamored. And then the next thing you know, I would listen back and I was like, I'm doing that. I am doing that. And so, in many ways, the man that I am is a man that I built because I didn't see it in my home from my stepfather or for years later, my mother would, after they divorced, married my biological father. I didn't see it in him. I'm the first pastor in my bloodline, first bishop in my bloodline. And those unfamiliar with that is, this is the pastor to pastors
Right.
first of certain educational achievements, first of certain financial achievement. I'm the first in so many ways, which speaks to one of my books, Sins of the Fathers, Breaking
Fathers.
Generational Curses. I am the first in so many ways. And so I think even the way I speak, it evolves. If you were to look at me 10 years ago versus today, it's a very different version. If you look at me 6 months ago to today, it's a different version because I'm always looking for better ways in order to connect with people. Because who cares if you got a great message, if the way you deliver it, the way you present it, no one hears it and no one wants to hear it because of how you're doing it.
Okay, so I have to pause and take a moment here because I was looking at all the books that you have written. The sins of the father, breaking the generational curses. I think that's really powerful because hearing that you are the one who broke it,
Yeah.
you are the one now who's doing what no one else has done, is a hope and a testimony that all things are possible.
Yes.
Don't rely on your past,
No.
the people in your bloodline to determine who you are.
Yeah.
So can you like quickly, I know there's a big subject. We could do a whole podcast just on that.
Yes.
But for the sake of those that are listening that want to break a cycle, that want to step into a new arena, what would you, how could you help them?
Oh, great question. I think a few things. One is recognizing the patterns. Moments lie,
Yes.
patterns don't.
Hmm.
You can have a great moment, but that necessarily not necessarily be who a person is. You can have a horrible moment, and that not necessarily be who a person is. So I looked at the patterns, and when I looked at the patterns, I said, what we have is a lot of potential with no productivity. What we have is a lot of regret with no results. What we have is a lot of, I remember saying this to my stepfather. In fact, in the book Sins of the Fathers, his story is the opening story. When he was alive, I changed the names just to protect the innocent and the guilty.
Sure.
When he was alive, when he passed away, I began to talk about that aspect of it. He never met his biological father. In fact, when his mother was pregnant with him, his mother had to defend herself against his biological father, and that would be how his biological father would be unalived, in her defending herself. against him. And so he was a womanizer. He was an abuser. He was a cheat. He was all these different things. He never met that man, yet became exactly like that man because of the
Yes.
principle. It's spiritual. This thing is passed down and around. And people say, well, I don't believe in that. But just check the patterns, because just because you don't believe in something doesn't mean that it's not true. You don't have to believe in gravity, but go step off your building and see what happens. If do you hit the ground or do you fly? And based on that, we'll determine whether or not it's true. And so I think one is just an awareness. Look at the patterns to see there is a pattern of behavior that's passed down and around, and it's destructive. It's not productive. It's not advancing. And sometimes it's really insidious. It shows up in being shy when you need to be bold. Sometimes it shows up in being reserved when you need to be more vocal. Sometimes it doesn't show up in these very overt. For example, we might look at drug and alcohol addiction and say, well, there it is. That's clear. But sometimes it's so much more insidious, because sometimes those things that are more overt and easy to see are easier to conquer. It's the insidious things.
Yeah.
It's the things that sometimes you don't even really pay attention to that can be the greatest hindrances. So, one, pay attention to the patterns. Two, recognize that you can be different. What you have beheld is not who you have to become. There's a scripture that says, I was born in sin, shaped in iniquity. Key word there is shaped. The shape I have is based on the environment and other factors that have been in my life up to this point, which means just because I've been shaped this way doesn't mean I have to keep this shape. I
Right.
can change shapes. And so recognizing if there's something, and you said it earlier, that doesn't serve you, that doesn't advance you, that doesn't make you better, you can change shapes. That's what I did. I said, you know what? I haven't seen anyone in my bloodline do this. I can change shapes. My grandfather, who recently passed away, he was an amazing man. He
Oh.
he was my grandfather, but he was my greatest spiritual son. He was amazing. He was my
Mm.
right hand of the ministry. He took care of what we call pastoral care, and so he was on the phones with folks. We're a hybrid church in buildings and online, so we've got people across America, around the world. He would be in hospitals on my behalf. He'd be on the phone on my behalf. He'd be doing a variety of things in nursing homes on my behalf. He was
Oh.
amazing. And I had the privilege of being able to first ordain him into the ministry. I had the privilege
Wow.
of being able to confer his doctorate upon him after he completed that. And I say that because part of being the curse breaker meant that I was able to do for my bloodline what wasn't done for me. I was able to give what wasn't given to me. So I think pay attention to the patterns, recognize that you can change them. And you're right, we could do a whole episode on it. That's why I did a book. And by the
Right.
way, I will say, full disclosure, I don't get anything for my book. So I've always given all of my book proceeds back to the church. To me, that's just the way I've chosen to do that. But that book, I wrote it short so that sometimes men, notoriously are not known for reading or liking to read sometimes. And so I wrote my book so that whether you are an avid reader and you love to cozy up with a book next to the fireplace and a cup of hot cocoa or warm coffee or tea, or if you're the person that's like, I got to read this book because I got to do this thing. It's written in a simple, practical, pragmatic, easy way to understand the principle and then know what to do next.
That's powerful. Well, I will definitely have all your information in the show notes so people can go and get that book and make a difference in their lives. So,
Yes.
speaking about making a difference, you were nominated by your peers to be bishop.
Yes.
You have the Harvest Leadership Network, where you are investing in the lives of senior pastors and leaders. Now, again, this says more to me about who you are. Your people love you, call you their shepherd because of the way you lead them. And
Mhm.
now you're called by your peers to lead them in even a higher level.
Right.
So to me, when your peers choose you, they trust you.
Mm.
They value your leadership. They believe in what you're able to impart to them. So that to me is probably one of the, it's a huge compliment. And so tell us about what you do. How are you leading other pastors?
Oh, great question. And thank you for that. I was actually selected back in '06. And so it was really interesting, my journey. My journey is unconventional in many ways. But again, back to my life. My life has been unconventional in many ways. So I, in 2006, was selected by a group of pastors to be bishop, and which is essentially, again, simplest way to view it, pastor to pastors. And what was amazing is that At that time, it was not too much prior to that we had actually planted and started the church. But because of my business background, organizational management, organizational development, taking nothing, turning it into something, consulting for pastors and churches on the inner workings of how do you get to results, how do you reach more people, how do you do these things. They saw that work and actually contacted me and reached out to me, interestingly enough, from Atlanta. So I was consecrated bishop
Okay.
in Atlanta. So in many ways, us moving our headquarters here is somewhat of a homecoming, in that this was the place where that was recognized. And that was in 2006. So we have the Harvest Leadership Network. We train, develop, pour into pastors. Every general needs a general. Every coach needs a coach. Every leader needs a leader. The most
Yes,
dangerous person on the planet is the person that says, I don't need anyone telling me anything. That is a person who is
that's
headed
right.
where they're headed. They've already been there. They've been where they're going. And so,
That's good.
yeah, it's a principle I believe in. As a man in authority, I'm also a man under authority. So I have a shepherd who, I give him the permission to tell me yes and to tell me no. I remember it's so funny. There was something I wanted to do, and I presented the information to him, and our schedules are very full, so a lot of what we do has to be through text. And so I sent him the information, and I said, all right, sir, this is what I want to do. Now I am a grown man with leadership to thousands and thousands of people. And he said, no, keep it moving. I said, okay. Yes, sir. All right. I said, that's fine. I will not do that. I will keep it moving. Yes, sir. And I share that story just to say that I think, sometimes people think to be a strong leader, it means that you have no one that can speak into your life that can correct you. And I think it's the exact opposite. The strongest, even if you were to use Jesus as an example, he was meek, but meek doesn't mean weak.
Right.
Meek just meant that he knew when there was the time to submit. And you see this a couple of times in his life. One, you see him go to John the Baptist. Now, just think about it. I made you, I created you, but I'm coming to you. And the baptism there is a Hebrew custom called mikvah. So he was actually ordaining him into ministry. So it's John the
Mm.
Baptist that ordains Jesus in the ministry. Just think about that, though. So God in the flesh is being ordained into the ministry by the flesh he made. It's a principle. It's a principle to
It's a
teach us that
principle.
the strongest of us can still be submitted and there's no weakness. You're not weak if you're being meek. That's actually strength,
I so believe that. And there's so much power in surrender,
right?
submission,
Yes.
humility.
Yes.
And so I was going to ask you this question later, but I'm going to ask it to you now because we know how the enemy works.
Sure.
And we know you have been called to incredible things to do, and you have created so much, and God is using you. There's obviously an anointing upon you. How do you safeguard your heart, your mind, your soul from the enemy coming in to sow a seed of pride? Because
Ooh.
we know if he can come in sideways and take us out with pride, he's going to do it.
Right.
So, how do you safeguard yourself?
You know what? I think that's so powerful. Pride, I think, has destroyed more than their
Yes.
mistakes. You go back to the garden with Adam. It was Adam's response that produced God's response. It was how Adam handled it. It wasn't what he did. God did nothing until he listened to Adam's response. Well, it's not my fault. It's that woman you gave me. In other words, I'm advocating responsibility. And really, it's an arrogant response. Because really, what I'm saying is, it's really your fault. Had you not given me Eve, had you not done this, it's really your fault. His prideful response created all of the rest of what happened. Like if Adam
Right.
responds and says it was me, it was my fault, I shouldn't have did that, I made a mistake, like that's kind of the end of it. Like that's kind of the rest of the story is just, and they all lived happily ever after, and kind of thing. Obviously, I'm oversimplifying it, but the point was that pride created such an adverse set of circumstances, and so I can speak to that very plainly. For me, I don't read my own press. So I
Mm,
don't,
that's good.
matter of fact, especially when I do a lot of these interviews and they're telling me, I'm hearing my bio over and over again. I'm not one who goes back and looks at my bio all the time or looks at the accomplishments. Many times I'll be like, oh, wow, oh, wow, I remember that. Oh, I remember that. Because I do not read my own press. I am not impressed by my own press. I recognize that everything that I've done has been because I've been enabled to do it. I've been gifted to do it. I've been skilled to do it. And I always give God the glory for that. Secondly, I realized that sometimes the people that celebrate you on Sunday can try to crucify you on Monday. So I
Mm.
realized that I never let the applause cause me to live or die. I never let the applause cause me to think I'm this or think I'm that. I really tether who I am to what I know that I'm called to do. And I make the assignment the applause, not the applause for the assignment. Like doing what I'm supposed to do to me is what the applause is, not how people respond or react to that. And then thirdly, I went through an experience. You heard me talk about business and ministry really simultaneously. Well,
Yes.
by 21, I built Denver's largest African American owned real estate finance brokerage or mortgage company.
Wow.
And over the weekend, I had watched simultaneously while in ministry. I wasn't a senior pastor then, but I was in ministry as an associate pastor at the time. I watched the industry collapse over the weekend. So on Friday, we are riding high, living on top of the world. On Saturday, I turn on CNN. I look, one of the banks that we use, it has collapsed. I reached out on that
Oh
Monday
gosh.
telling the agent or our representative from the bank, I said, his name was Matt. I said, Matt, what happened? He said, well, oh, it's over for the bank. I said, oh, that's so unfortunate for that branch. I didn't understand the gravity of the situation. He said, no, the bank, it's insolvent. Ooh, that's really unfortunate for the Southern California region, which is where they were based. He said, no, you're not understanding. He said, it is, the bank is insolvent. It's over. I said, well, what about all the business we have with you guys in the pipeline? It said, it's over. It's done. And then after that, it was dominoes. And here's
Mm.
what I learned from that. I had begun to attach my sense of worth and value to the things that I was producing, the things that I was accomplishing, the money that I had, the credit that I had. And so I went through a valley. And this is where I wrote my first book, Making Money, Money Moves, The Art of Getting Your Finances in Order. I went through a valley that taught me to never tether my value to stuff. I can always get stuff, but I can never let stuff get me. I can never let stuff have me. That changed my whole view. So many people will say, what about this? What about that? What about that? And I am very clear that it is because of the goodness of God that I am
Yeah.
where I am. I've got so much more to do, but I do not get excited off of or get impressed by my own press. And, some would say it like this: I never get high off of my own supply. I am well aware that I am a vessel being used. And I'm grateful. You said something at the beginning that resonated with me. You said, I feel so honored I get to do this. And that's the
Yes.
mentality I have. As I get to do this, I get to sit and have conversations like this. I get to teach, I get to preach, I get to lead, I get to build business. I get to do this. So to me, it's very easy to not let pride sneak in there because I saw what happened when it snuck in there one time.
Yeah.
And that valley, that's a valley you don't want to ever, you don't want that feeling again.
Oh no. Well, you know what? It's called the fear of God,
Hmm.
right? It's the
Hmm.
fear of God. And when he entrusts us with something, he wants us to really steward it well. And I sense that humility and strength about you. You don't live for the applause of man, you live for the applause of God.
I do. I do. I do.
That's what you do.
Yeah, and again, having that experience, where a lot of times, sometimes people you hear this phrase "church hurt," or people talk
Mm,
about negative experiences they've had in church, and I understand that. As a shepherd
right.
and having been on both sides, I can attest that most of the hurt comes from the sheep to the shepherd because sheep have teeth and they bite. I'm telling you. And what I discovered is that sometimes, again, as I mentioned, the people that celebrate you one day may the very next day have a turn of opinion or turn of view or what have you. And what that did is that helped me to realize love everybody, but take none of this stuff personal.
No, that is so good. And I really want to go back to your Valley experience because that's like a transition.
Hmm.
That is a transition. And God does his greatest work in times of transition. So here you
Yes.
are in the valley. God uses conflict. He
Hmm.
uses these interruptions in our life to
Hmm.
teach us
Hmm.
something. And we have to be the student who wants to learn. And
Yes.
he lets us go through these things to reveal something about us he wants to heal or strengthen. And so, to the audience who's listening, if you're going through a difficult time, ask ask the Lord, what is it that you want to teach me? What is it that you want to show me? What is it that I need to do better as you
Right.
take me forward? I always use the analogy of the bridge. The transitions in life are the bridges that take us from
Yes.
where we currently are to where we need to be.
Yes.
And we have to cross that bridge. And we cross it sometimes in brokenness
Mhm.
because what's being revealed as we cross those areas of life where we're wounded, where we're offended, where we need to learn, where we need to let go, because God's preparing us for the next season.
Right.
And so
Right. So
that's
true.
kind of what you said, going
Oh,
through
that's
that valley.
exactly it. And every transition is that way. And I love
Yeah.
your viewing of that because it goes back to this mentality that I have that again, Romans 8:28, everything is working together for my good.
Yes.
So even if it's bad, it's working for my good. Even if it doesn't feel good, it's working for my good. Even if it doesn't look
Mhm.
good, it's working for my good. That is the substratum of belief. What that does is it empowers you in a way that means you're never scared to walk through anything.
Right.
You're never afraid of it in the classical sense of, oh, what if this happens? You're like, well, you know what? I've been through some challenges. I've been through some storms. I've been through some rough things. I've been through some difficulties. I know how to survive. I know how to thrive. And I really think looking at it as a bridge is the
Mhm.
best way. I could use any point or period, ministry and business and life, and it really has always been that bridge. And knowing, because I think that's the challenge many of us have, is okay, I'm in it, but it doesn't feel like that. It doesn't seem like that. And here's the faith part. And where am I going anyhow? Where am I
Right.
headed anyhow? What is this going to lead to? Well, it's always going to be better than what you're currently in. So that's exactly what it is. And so I've come to love transition. I have gotten to love transition to where I begin to program my life that way. I move my home around, my bedroom around, office around. I will move those things around every few months to always keep my mindset mentality, be prepared for transition.
That is so good. So you don't struggle with change.
No,
You live in it.
I live in it. I embrace it. I
Hmm.
get excited about it because I recognize one, you can't stop it. So the best thing to
Yeah.
do is to learn how to maximize it, and that's really, I can't say that I'm perfect at that, but that's one of the best ways. This transition of moving our headquarters from Denver, Colorado, to Atlanta, Georgia, it is a transition that I'll be very honest, I thought was going to be way smoother and easier than it's been. And what I discovered is that this is just like any other major change. Whenever you deal with major resistance in that change, it's because on the other side of it, there's major results. And so,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah,
I
yeah,
always tell people when you get to the other side, the divine appointments are waiting for you. These
yes,
are the people you will never meet unless
yes,
you go there.
yes,
They are the people waiting to join with you to help you accomplish your next thing in life, but
right.
you'll never meet them if you don't cross that bridge.
Gotta do it. And that's been so true. Every major transition has always been followed up by major triumph. Point blank, period, bottom line, every single time. And I think taking that mentality on, it's been so good for me because as a human being, we have human moments. And I always live by this belief it's okay to have a moment, just don't turn it into a monument.
Oh, that's good.
Don't stay there.
Don't
Don't stay
dwell.
there. Don't dwell on that. Like it's okay to say, you know what, that hurt me. And that's fine. You're a human being. That did hurt. But
Be
you can't
real.
stay there. You can't live there. You can't live in that hurt. You can't live in that pain. It's okay to say, you know what, I thought this person was always going to help me. And now they're gone. I thought this person was always going to be with me. Now they're gone. Okay. So have a moment, but don't turn it into a monument. Because when you begin to make monuments in valleys, valleys are temporary. So to put a monument there is to say, I want to stay here.
Right, right. And that's not healthy, not
No.
healthy. So you are also a coach, which I love. And so how are you combining like your business principles with scripture and leadership? Like share with us how you do all that.
Sure. I look because I look at sometimes people look at the Bible, depending on how you view the Bible, determines what you get out of it. Some people just view it as a book with lots of great stories to inspire and encourage them. And that's great. But it's more, it's principles. And principles work regardless of
Hmm.
environment, regardless of background, regardless of any of that. And so I take those principles again back to how I was born, Bible and briefcase. And then when it comes to those that I coach, and I do life coaching, I do business coaching. What I love is entrepreneurs, CEOs, executives, pastors. And what I really love is having people come to me at one level, and particularly on the business side, and watching them. I have this goal of making as many millionaires as possible. And the reason for that is there's a scripture that says money answers all things. So I think when people, particularly God's people, are empowered financially,
Hmm.
there is so much good, so much change that can come because they have the answer. And so it is not about chasing the money. Let me be very clear. It is about being an empowerment because now that you've built a business, you can hire people. You can empower people. You can
Right.
empower their lives. They can change their lives. They can do things, and so I love doing that type of coaching. I
Yeah.
take those principles and we put those principles into play, and I make it very pragmatic. Simple example: if we were to use, one of my favorite scriptures, Luke 6:38, give and it shall be given unto you.
Yes. Yes.
Very simple. Whatever I want to receive, I first have to release. That's the principle.
Hmm.
Give, that's an action on our part, and it will be given to you. And then it says, good measure, pressed down, shaken together. It just means more than what you gave. So whatever I want to receive, I first have to release. So for many people, the challenge that they're having is, I'm trying to manifest this. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do this. Where is this? Well, you haven't released it first. You have to be that before that comes
Yes.
into your life. You want loyal people, you got to release loyalty. You want people to open doors for you, you have to open doors for someone else. So the question becomes, is not who's going to do this for me, it's who can you do this for? Because now you
Yes.
follow the principle, and that principle now is going to, produce for you. So I love doing that and giving people the roadmap and seeing people. I mean, to be honest with you, the reason I still do it as full as my schedule is because it actually gives me a greater sense of fulfillment, even more so than preaching and teaching and being on stages and lectures and speaking wherever I'm doing. I get so much fulfillment out of the one-on-one because
Yeah.
it's the ability to see people say, oh my goodness, I got it, I got it, and then to hear their stories. Oh, it gives me life.
Oh, it's like the light bulb goes off and then you
Yes.
set their feet to running. It's a gift. I feel that
Yes.
way too. I do too. So I
Yes.
love this. I saw this quote. We don't work to make a living, we live to
Yes.
make a giving. And
Hmm.
so kind of you alluded to that. And you've also are very philanthropic. You have a lot of community impact and
Right.
projects.
Right.
And so how do you see generosity as a part of your ministry calling?
Oh goodness. To me, it's everything. What if you're not giving, what are you doing? You're taking. And I think when you take and you're just a reservoir, eventually reservoirs, if nothing flows out, you get
Yeah.
like the Dead Sea, right? Where nothing
Hmm.
can live there. And I think that's what happens a lot of times with people, where it's take, get. Instead of being a river, people
River.
tend to be reservoirs. And so to me, it's all about, it's all about we're blessed to be a blessing. We make our living from our giving. And so when you view it that way, you're never stuck in a valley. You know where I learned that? The valley I was just telling you about. Because to get out of that valley, I did something crazy. To go from making more money in 1 month in a business to than most people make in a lifetime, to then seeing all of that shut off, and then seeing this life that you've built
Yeah.
having to restructure and saying, "Whoa, has to change," and "Whoa, why am I even going through this?" I learned great principles and great lessons, and in that, I learned that I can always give my way out of anything. It's not
That's good.
buying a miracle, it's sewing my way out of a situation. And so that's
Hmm.
what I began to do. I literally followed that principle while I was in one of the darkest financial valleys and business valleys that that I had ever been in up to that point. And I gave my way out of it. So when people talk about all the things I've done, I'm like, sure, I did that, and sure, I did that, and sure, I did that. But you know what I'm most excited about? The 28,000 toys we've given away, the
Yeah.
140,000 articles of clothing we've given away, the 1,900 books that we've sown into the lives of people, the 6,000 families we've adopted, the 5,000 backpacks we've given away,
Hmm.
the 211,000 pounds of food we've given away, the almost $1 million we've given away to missions, domestic and abroad. I get most excited about, well, how have we been a blessing? What have we released? And so that's why Harvest is blessed. That's why I'm blessed. That's why people connected are blessed, is because it's a principle. That principle works. And I really honestly believe that.
Principles are consistent. We can
Yes.
actually depend on the principle.
Yes.
And what you were saying earlier about if you want doors open, you have to open doors for
Yep.
others. That is like sacrificial on our part.
Hmm.
We have to die to self and think of others more highly than ourselves.
Yes.
Serve others, and the principle, as you give, it will come back to you.
It does. It does. That's
Yeah.
how I'm sitting with you today. I'm sitting with you today because listen, we have sown that and released that, and I believe that divine connections come and divine connections happen,
I do
and
too.
so it is just that. I think the key thing in all of that, it's not just knowing it, but doing it. I think sometimes as humans, we all know what we should do in some way, and then we don't do it. And I made a decision to be a person who would rather know something and do it than know something and just talk about it.
Oh,
There's a
that's
scripture.
good.
Blessed are those who do these words that I say. So God has an affinity towards, a bias towards doers.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, if you do it, even if you study the Bible, like these people were not perfect. They had lots of issues, lots of challenges, lots of insecurities, some mishandled transition in amazing ways. Well, those we read about, they had an affinity towards doing, the father of the faith for your big three: Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Abraham, all Abrahamic belief sets. And you look at his story, and he's attributed as a man of faith. And even the scripture says, and he didn't falter. And when you go back and look at his story, yes, he did falter. Yes, he did falter. But when the story is told about him, that part is not even really necessarily recorded. It's not
Right.
focused on. He was a man of action. He took a step. Get out of your father's country to a land I'm going to show you. He did it.
He
And
did
those
it.
actions that he took, based on the principles that he knew and the information that he had, changed the trajectory of world history. And I think the same is true for your audience, same for you, same for me, is that when we do what we know, that's more powerful than just knowing.
That is so powerful. And just think about if Abraham had never left, if he never made the transition of moving from one place to
Yes.
another,
Yes.
would what would be going on right now? And
Right.
that's the power of transition for all of us.
Hmm.
Our transitions are not just about ourselves. It's
Hmm.
about what God is doing within us
Hmm.
that will have an effect on others. And that's
Yes.
why it's so important to process, navigate, go through transitions healthy. Because
Yes.
when you come out on the other side, you're not only better, but the world around you now can be impacted in a greater way
Yes.
because now you're bringing something better with you.
Oh, yes. And I love that saying, and recognizing your life is bigger than you.
Yeah.
And that is something that's been intrinsic in me, going back to the Bible in the briefcase, going back to that parentified environment, going back to
Mhm.
all of these different transitions. It helped me to constantly see that my life, my yes, impacts so many destinies. And I think so many people, it's easy to look at someone who does what I do, someone who does what you do, and say, well, sure, that's because you guys do this for a living. That's because this is your vocation, this is your occupation. But the truth is, wherever you're at, your yes, your decisions are impacting lives that are beyond you. Maybe it's your children, your community, your coworkers, lives that you'll never meet, people that you'll never see. And I really believe that when you live life that way, it helps you, back to something you mentioned earlier, to not take a prideful approach, but to really take an
Mhm.
approach of humility that says, I recognize that my existence is impacting more than me. So the decisions I make aren't just about me. They're about this impact that I'm having, these lives that I'm changing. And when you view it that way, it helps, again, back to transition. I think it makes transition so much easier,
It
because
does.
you realize this is bigger than me. It may be uncomfortable for me for a while, but it's producing something that's going to be a blessing for so many people for eternity.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Amen. Well, Bishop Foreman, in closing, you have so much wisdom to share. God is taking you through several journeys. You're accomplishing so much for His glory, and people's lives are being impacted. So, all that being said, what is God speaking to your heart right now that you can just impart to the audience as we close?
Yeah. I would say this one saying: you still have a pulse, he still has a plan.
Mm.
Transition sometimes can feel like an ending. Sometimes it can feel like it's over. Sometimes it can feel like, sure, I'm on a bridge, but the bridge to where? A bridge to nowhere, right? And what I had to discover is that if I still have a pulse, he still has a plan. That plan is still working. The best is not behind. It's here and it's ahead. And the reality is that I really believe this is that you will do greater in the years that are ahead of you than all of what you've done behind you. I believe that. I think that. And I believe that with everybody listening. My life's journey is proof of that. And it's not over. It is still very much so in process that every time I thought, oh, this is it. This is it. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to turn. I don't know what's going to happen. That I went from transition into triumph. So the takeaway is you got a post, he's got a plan.
I love that. And hey, Bishop Foreman, thank you so much for being with us
Thank
today.
you.
It has been a true honor. I have really relished, loved this conversation that
Me
we've
too.
had together.
Me
And
too.
Transition Tribe, I just want to thank you so much for coming in each and every week because even as today you listened, we're understanding more about the purpose and the power in life's transitions. Remember, our lives are a story of transition. We can't avoid them. We're always closing one chapter and opening another. And the key there is closing. There's times we're called to close a chapter, a season in our life, because there's a new chapter to be read. Your story is still being written. And so your story is not over. And so if you're in a place of confusion, pain, you've lost hope, I just want you to know, just like Bishop Foreman has just shared, you still have a post. God still has a plan. Don't give up. Just surrender and let Him move. And you will find on the other side of that bridge, there's something waiting for you, and your life will have a new beginning. Thank you for being with us.